On this episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be looking at the flurry of moves the Chiefs have made since the draft, because apparently, even when the draft ended, the Chiefs just weren't done yet. They just were not done adding talent. So, what players have the Chiefs added in the days since the draft? First up, we've got to talk about the undrafted free agent rookies that the team has been rapidly signing since the draft ended. And I know what you're thinking. Undrafted rookie free agents don't matter. Well, you'd be wrong. Back in the day when my grandpa got drafted into the NFL, there were 30 rounds in the draft. 30 rounds in the draft. When my dad started coaching in the NFL in the early 80s, there were still 12 rounds in the draft. 12 rounds. It was not until 1994 that the NFL switched to the 7-round short system that they use today. And a lot about that change was really about making it TV friendly, making the draft TV friendly. It wasn't about the fact that there weren't any players after that. And I give you this brief history lesson for the NFL to say this. Every year, there are going to be guys who go undrafted who back in the day, they would have been drafted, and even today, they're going to make big impacts in the league. Do you remember Chiefs offensive guard Brian Waters? Do you remember Chiefs running back Priest Holmes? Do you remember Chiefs safety Duron Cherry? Yeah. What do they all have in common? They were undrafted players. So do not take these guys lightly. The most interesting of the undrafted free agents that the Chiefs have signed is former Clemson wide receiver Justin Ross. Okay, seriously, give me like 5 minutes to tell you the story of Justin Ross. You gotta hear this story. It's an incredible story. You're gonna be rooting for him by the end of it, okay? In high school, Justin Ross was a standout basketball and football player, a phenomenal athletic talent. By the time his senior year rolled around, Justin was the #1 football recruit in the entire state of Alabama. Yeah, he was a talented guy. And he was the number 15 rated recruit in the entire United States of America. Instead of signing with Alabama, though, he actually signed with Clemson. Now, Clemson has recently been a wide receiver pipeline into the NFL with starters and NFL draft picks like DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, all going through the program, all becoming stars in the league. So absolutely no one was shocked when this huge recruit, this top recruit, Justin Ross, caught 1,000 yards in his freshman season at Clemson with 9 touchdowns and an average of, get this, 21.7 yards receiving his freshman year in college playing for Clemson. Yeah, that was the year where Trevor Lawrence led the Clemson team to a national championship. Yeah, it was that same year that Justin Ross was the leading receiver in yards. He was leading the team in yards. Yeah. And it was Justin Ross who led the Clemson Tigers in the title game with 153 yards receiving and 6 receptions. You might even remember that game. He was going to be a top 5 first-round pick. He was a top 5 first-round pick in all the mock drafts that were coming. But then, in the spring of 2020, his life was changed forever. Justin was hit, thought he only had a sting spine. A few days later, he's going about his business. He thinks nothing's wrong, and he's getting ready for practice. When Coach Dabo Swinney calls him into his office, there's all these doctors around. His mom's on the phone, and the doctors tell him he's got a rare congenital spine condition, and he may never play again. But Justin overcomes. He goes through surgery. He goes through rehab. He comes back like a champ. He finally gets cleared to play by the doctors in 2021, but then things get worse. He tests positive for COVID-19, but it wasn't like the easy type that I had of COVID. He had trouble breathing. He lost 15 pounds over the next weeks, but again, the guy just fought back. He fought back to play, and he's back in the games. Only he suffers a stress fracture in his foot. Yeah. He chose not to have surgery because he wanted to be out there and play. And even though he literally was playing on a broken foot, was coming off spinal surgery, had lost 15 yards because of COVID, he still put up 514 yards in 2021. He got foot surgery, which cut his draft prep short. He wasn't ready for the combine, so he didn't run at the combine. He really wasn't ready for his pro day a month later, but he wanted to run anyway, so he posted a slow 4.6340. But dude, go watch his tape from his freshman year. This is not a guy who only runs a 4.6. Now, going into the draft, nobody had any idea where Justin was going to go. A lot of players had a tentative fourth round grade on him if he was even left on their board. Some players, some teams, they just took him off their board altogether because of the injury issues. But Bleacher Report, interestingly, still had him as the 33rd best player in the draft. Round after round goes by, and well, at the end of the day, the former shoe-in for a top 5 pick, he didn't get drafted at all. And now he just signed with our Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I can't tell you he's going to be healthy next year. I can't tell you he's ever going to return to that elite form. But what I can tell you is that after learning about that story, I'm pulling for the guy. And what I can tell you is that the Chiefs were just able to sign the best, most highly upsided, undrafted free agent of the entire year, which to me is a huge win. And I hope that you're going to be cheering and rooting for Justin Ross this upcoming season too. And hey, real quick, make sure to hit the subscribe button, notification bell on YouTube for the Red and Gold Report to get all the best Chiefs news and insights brought to you online. So who else did the Chiefs sign as undrafted free agents that are worth mentioning? Well, the Chiefs signed former Iowa State linebacker Mike Rose. Rose had a 5th round grade on him, so he's a steal getting him, as an undrafted rookie. He's a big linebacker. He stands 6 feet 4 inches, 245 pounds. He's strong. He's good at downhill plays, and he's good at tackling. He's a physical player, so he fits the mold of really where the team is trying to head this offseason with the defense. Basically, it's like the Chiefs got a free 5th round pick at a position where they really needed depth. Another good undrafted free agent the Chiefs have recently signed is Mississippi running back Jerian Ely. Ely doesn't have the measurables. He stands only 5 feet 8 inches, only 189 pounds. He only ran a 4.540 yard dash. But he's a football player. He's a football player who got it done for Ole Miss. He had over 700 yards rushing every single of his 3 seasons at Ole Miss with a 5.8 yard rushing average, which is very good, and 540 yards receiving, so he adds something there, while excelling as a kick returner as well. Fun fact, he's one of the only 4 people ever to earn Under Armour All-American notice for both football and baseball. So he's a heck of an athlete, right? And he had a 6th round grade. So he's definitely a talent that was worth adding for the Chiefs. Ultimately, the Chiefs are going to bring in plenty of undrafted free agents that are mostly not going to make the team. But these 3 guys are just like getting draft picks for free. But the Chiefs didn't just add players after the draft via undrafted rookie free agents. We've also made a trade. Yes, on Monday, the Chiefs traded away a conditional 7th round pick in the 2024 draft for Houston Texans defensive back Lonnie Johnson. Now, the Texans took Johnson in the 2019 draft out of Kentucky in the 2nd round. The 2nd round. And I know what you're thinking, and no, it wasn't just a classic dumb Texans move where they unloaded a player for nothing, or misdrafted the guy. He really was a 2nd rounded graded player coming out in 2019, and it did make sense for them to trade him away. Let me explain. Johnson has immense talent. He stands 6 feet 2 inches, 213 pounds, with long arms, and was a high school track star. So a lot of physical talent. Unfortunately, he's had a very uneven playing career. He played really poorly at corner in his rookie season 2019, like really bad. Then he was moved to safety for 2020, where he actually showed a lot of promise in coverage particularly, but then he went back to playing poorly in 2021, and my best bet is he's going to be playing corner for the Chiefs this year. And it's an interesting move because Johnson played 37 games in Houston with new Chiefs free agent safety Justin Reed. Look, sure, it might seem like he was a bust, which is why it kind of makes sense for the Texans to trade him away. But he also has a lot of talent. And how much can you really evaluate a player who's been playing for the Texans? And you're just giving up the possibility of a seventh rounder 2 years from now. So it seems like a low risk, high reward move for me. So through signing undrafted free agents like they're getting free draft picks and through a trade, well, the Chiefs were not done adding talent to this roster after the draft. And I don't think they're done yet still. But turning to other news, former Chiefs safety Tyron Matthew has signed with the Saints. Tyron is, from Louisiana. He played at LSU, so this is definitely a homecoming for him. And for the Chiefs, it's a bit of a sigh of relief that he didn't last any longer on the free agent market because now there's still a possibility that they're going to get a compensatory pick for him in the 2023 draft. In other news, other free agency news, the Chiefs have applied a very infrequently and oddly used little tactic on free agent defensive end Melvin Ingram, placing a UFA tender on the defensive end. Basically, this just means that if another team signs Ingram before July 22nd, Ingram is still going to factor into the Chiefs' compensatory draft pick equation next year. So this acts as a distinctively, difficult thing to overcome. If another team wants to sign him, it's going to be a little more difficult because, well, they're going to owe the Chiefs a draft pick. That might decrease Ingram's asking price. I'm sure he's not happy about it, but it also increases the chance that the Chiefs are going to sign him, which, hey, I would be happy about. I would love for him to come back at a low price deal for the Chiefs, unseating Frank Clark in his current starting position at defensive end. In other news, we learned that Chiefs corner Rashad Finton is undergoing rehab on a shoulder. He should be healed up in time for camp, and I hope he is because he's a really important piece in the plans for the Chiefs this season. Back to draft news. I want to share another thought that I've had about the draft, and it's this. A lot has been said about the uniquely talented quarterbacks in our division in the AFC West right now. But here's another unique thing that I had never really thought about before I started looking it up earlier today about our division. The wide receivers in the AFC West have suddenly gotten really tall. The Broncos have Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. Those guys are 6'5" and 6'4". The Raiders now have Devontae Adams, who's 6'1", and they have Brian Edwards, who's 6'3". The Chargers have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who are 6'4" and 6'2". So after the Chiefs added McDuffie at corner in the first round, who's only 5'11", it's not really an accident that later in the draft, the Chiefs drafted a 6'3" corner and then another corner that's 6'2", and then came back and traded for another corner that's 6'2". So after the Chiefs had 0 corners over 6 foot 1 inch last year, they now have 3 that are 6'2" or high or taller on the roster right now. It's clear they're intentionally trying to load up to stop these huge receivers in the AFC West. Also, in draft news, I love my Chiefs and I love this draft class. So as a fan of the team, sometimes, it's easy to wonder if we're grading a draft class highly because we just love our own team. But I want to assure you that's not the case this year. Every single major sports media outlet that I'm finding is giving the Chiefs draft a stellar grade. Sports Illustrated gave the Chiefs draft class an A. PFF gave the Chiefs draft class an A+. Bleacher Report gave the Chiefs draft class an A. CBS Sports gave the Chiefs draft class an A. So yeah, it's not just us. It's not just because we're fans of our own team. Like, the Chiefs really did nail this draft. Well, that about does it for me. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!